I wasn't on my phone. Brought to you by Scared is Better. Scared is Better books are available for free on Kindle Unlimited and for sale on Amazon. Uncle John dangled the 2008 Silverado keys in front of him and said the same thing he always said. Don't text and drive, Charles. Promise me. And Charles had promised. He meant it too. And so, no, he wasn't on his phone when he hit the deer. He'd been thinking about the truck he'd been dreaming of since he was 10, thinking about the victory blue paint glinting under the streetlights, thinking about his brand new Chevy t-shirt matched the color of his truck exactly, thinking about the icy blue glow of the stereo lighting up the dash like Christmas. And every moment of driving this truck away from John's house in Sholo, Arizona to Phoenix felt perfectly orchestrated, exactly what he had always dreamed. But he was not on his phone. Okay, he had glanced down at it just once. Yes, he'd checked the Instagram post to see if anyone had reacted to his photo of the vintage truck key he had held up against the blue sky and greeting card perfect pine trees. Just a quick scroll. One moment he was looking down at the bright screen, and the next he was face to face with a buck, its massive horns scraping across his windshield. He slammed on the brakes so hard his knee felt like it would lock. He heard the screech of tires, a chirping as he skidded, and the crack of glass. As the windshield turned into a spider web of shatterproof white, he jerked his face away instinctively. When the Silverado came to rest, perpendicular across the road, he had to peel his hand off the steering wheel. I wasn't on my phone, he whispered, though on the lonely Sholo road no one was asking. He tried to get a hold of himself, gripping his phone and his steering wheel. I wasn't on my phone, he repeated, a mantra to calm himself. I wasn't on my phone. He checked his body out of reflex, feeling the burn of the seatbelt across his neck. The glass had two distinct holes where the antlers had punched through, aimed directly at his chest. Icy air blew through the holes, and he checked himself again just to be sure. And he looked around. Only the tall ponderosa pines swayed in the wind. A sick feeling washed over him as he realized that was a big buck, the kind he'd do anything to get in his scope during hunting season. A clean rifle shot was bliss, but taking one down with a truck was another story entirely. He removed the key from the ignition and unbuckled with a shaky hand. The wind whistled through the holes, aimed straight at where his heart had been moments ago, and he had to step out and assess the damage. The first thing he thought was, what would everyone say? He'd had the truck less than 3 hours, and it was crashed. Surely the insurance company would ask whether or not he had been using his cell phone. Maybe they would even check his cell phone. Uncle John and his mom would question him relentlessly. His mind was a whirl of questions and fear. When he saw the chrome bumper still intact, a weight lifted from his chest. And when he saw the victory blue hood untouched under the moonlight, he could have screamed with happiness. The bucket hit, flown over the hood, slammed face first into the windshield, and the only real damage was glass. Silverado versus deer, and he was actually going to drive away. He ran his hand over the bumper, amazed it was still in one piece. There were dents, about a hand's length each, twin marks. But just like that new headliner he'd installed, a new bumper could be ordered. A new windshield? A mobile tech could be there in the morning, at his house. He used his phone flashlight to check the hood again. When he looked down at his phone, he thought about calling Uncle John, whose first question would no doubt be, "Were you on the phone?" He steadied himself to make the call, practicing. I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't. Because Uncle John was notoriously hard to lie to. It was at that moment he remembered this is a two-party accident. He walked around the truck, dreading what he would see. He would have preferred to see gore and viscera, because what he saw was far worse. The buck was standing on its rear legs. Its knees were pointed unnatural angles, which made Charles's stomach roll. One antler swung in front of its face, creating a terrible peekaboo with its jet black eyes. The wind howled as its breath fogged from under its dark nose. Its front legs hung limp, shaking gently like a tiny seizure. It shook his head, and red foam bubbled from its mouth. Charles stumbled backwards. He had a fleeting awareness of the phone in his hand, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the creature. The legs were now bent like human knees, the wrong way, its massive body tilting in the wind. Slobber pulled thickly around its longer than normal hooves. It began to chortle, making guttural noises so deep he saw its chest heave with the effort. He kept stumbling backwards. If panic hadn't taken over, he might have climbed back into the truck. But now the deer was between him and the driver's seat. He was nearer to the hood, the buck thing wobbling toward him. The sounds coming from its mouth were wet and sloppy. He saw its shoulder begin to bubble under the hide, breaking, re-breaking, reforming. It shook its head wildly, making the broken antler bounce. The other antler snapped off at the skull, clattering onto the icy roadway. Charles tripped over his own feet and hit the asphalt so hard his body spasmed. The creature stumbled faster now. Its face bubbled with welts of muscle as they contracted and shrank, thinning its jaw. The guttural sound of sharpened had now sharpened, losing its wetness. Its tawny fur began to flake off. It shook like a dog after a bath, fur flying everywhere, coating the street around him. Its hooves softened and then dropped off in a terrible pink spray of fluid, revealing fingers. It shook even harder. The skin beneath began to turn a deep, bruised blue. It spat as it worked to find its voice, its face shortening and flattening. Its huge eyes shrank from tennis ball size. Its ears fell off in what looked like flat slabs of meat. Its white belly narrowed. It was nearly on top of him when the warm slobber hit his exposed ankle. The creature looked right at him, pressing him down with newly formed pink, soft hands. And that's when he understood what it had been trying to say, because he heard it in his own voice. Charles knew that he was staring at his own emerging face as the creature smiled down at him. It pressed harder on his chest, squeezing the air from him. It hadn't been making random noises or sounds. Its jaw worked back and forth, jerking as it learned. It had been practicing, pairing itself to a new body. The mimic looked into his eyes, and the real Charles saw them flash to hazel, just like his. Its long tongue slid back behind its newly formed lips. The truck key, which he had been gripping tightly with his phone, clattered onto the asphalt. The shrinking eyes, now sprouting fine eyelashes, stared at the keys hungrily. A faint whisking sound, like a 3D printer assembling flesh, rose from within its chest as the Chevy emblem surfaced through the rapidly bluing skin. The last thing that Charles heard, the real Charles, was his own voice whispering, "I wasn't on my phone."